Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus Today. Tacitus Today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio, no pictures live stream. Please listen to this essay as you would a radio broadcast as you drive along in your car or your truck, or put on those earbuds and listen to it on public transport. In this essay, I'd like to talk about a former colleague of mine who I caught up with, and he has scored himself a gig as VP of, and I'll just use the generic term, an engineering firm, engineering company of probably mid to maybe in the upper mid echelon sort of size organisation. Anyway, they win a lot of government, or been gifted a lot of government contracts, and in return they're under a lot of pressure to hire, engage in large-scale affirmative action hiring, the classic "we want black lesbians everywhere" type stuff. Now, because they're being gifted and awarded government contracts, they don't have to be very good, commercially. They don't have to be an effective company and a well-organized business or anything, because they're being gifted these juicy contracts, and there's not much competition in the way of really looking at price, so they're able to make large profits at the taxpayer's expense, of course, and engage in this insanity of affirmative action hiring. Now, the government contracts slowed down a little bit, and so if they were going to keep making their numbers and so on, they had to win business in the competitive sector of the industry, if you will, and that's when it becomes different. Suddenly all the rules change when big juicy contracts being handed to you by the government, the same government that's telling you have to hire black lesbians. Then it kind of can be made to work at crushing taxpayer expense, lower productivity. It's a disaster, but it's a slow motion train wreck happening in background. Whereas if you have to compete in the marketplace, then you have to be the best, and you have to be good at what you do. And that's when the problem arises, because if you're shot through with affirmative action hires who don't know what they're doing, don't care, they're entitled, they're incompetent, and so on, then it's very difficult to compete in the marketplace. You've got to hope that all your competitors are also suffering from the same malaise of affirmative action and race, gender, quota hiring, because then they'll all have useless people in the jobs as well. Anyway, the business was slowing down, so they wanted to hire a competent straight white male as the VP of engineering, and so this is where my colleague or former colleague got the gig, and he'd be about 50, I guess. So he's quite good, and he certainly is efficient, and he gets, his eye is on the job, getting it done and doing it well, and he's certainly pursues excellence in that regard, and I can vouch for that firsthand. Anyway, here's the thing: he gets the job, and this is his first day on the job, and he sort of is meeting the team, meeting the people, which is sort of a customary thing when you get to organisations of this size. You have to get in front of the people. You make your little speech, they tell you what they're doing, and you have a little bit of a get to know each other round table type thing. The bigger the organisation, the more it turns into some sort of a ritualistic piece of nonsense. But anyway, so he's there now. He'd been primed by the executive vice president, by the CEO, to say, look, the team that he's going to take on, this is again the engineering team, they're not really up to the job. They don't tell him it's because of affirmative action. They say not all the people are really sort of sufficiently qualified to be able to produce the quality of result that's needed. And now it's interesting that to me at least, it was interesting that the CEO and the EVP would say this to this guy, because they're the ones who've signed off on the affirmative action hiring. Now, sure, they were told, hey, you want these big juicy government contracts, then you hire a lot of fucking black lesbians. That's the deal. You don't want to hire the black lesbians, you get no government contracts. And or it could be on the other side, or both sides, where the BlackRock guys or people in the big finance say, look, if you want an overdraft sort of rotating loan facility without questions, you better have a lot of LGBTQ flags flying, and so that type of stuff. So they're probably getting it from both sides. And look, if you're a CEO, it's wrong, and it's bad, it's commercially and from a financial business perspective, it's disastrous to go down this affirmative action, race, gender, quota path. But they can sweeten the deal for you. The guys from BlackRock can say, look, we can walk the share price up to $50 a share whenever we want to, and at any time we want to. And why don't we say that when the share price hits 50, for example, $50 a share, that you get a $10 million bonus? Why don't we sort of just write that into the we control most of the directors on the board, so they'll vote for this if we tell them to, and so you can get a $10 million bonus. So there you go. You're being looked after. So a lot of CEOs would go, well, I'll be out of a job and I'll never work again if I don't do what they want. And if I do what they want, I can stick $10 million in my back pocket. I mean, what would you do? Seriously. So it's, if we look at the wider architecture of what's going on and the happenings and so on, then that's likely how it all, well, not likely, it is how these things play out. So anyway, so my VP buddy goes to the meeting. Now it's I'll just use round numbers here. There's 10 people at the meeting. There are 3 men, 7 women. 2 of the women are brown. So now in what would be a critical area of the company in a competitive marketplace, again, when you're getting government contracts just dropped on you, then it's not competitive. And so it doesn't matter if you've got flunkies and stooges and quota and affirmative action people but now they need people who can do the job, and because they're out competing now in the marketplace. And once you're not competing in the marketplace, then you don't have to be the best. That's one of the tragedies: monopolies, oligopolies, cartels, all that sort of stuff. As soon as the competition goes away, the idiots and the useless people just take over somehow. It's just how things are. Anyway, so he's there at the meeting, and he records it, and he plays a bit of it to me as we're talking about this. And I was like, wow, I had no idea it was quite this bad. But so he comes to the meeting. Then one of the women who is, as he explains it, very butchy, dykey sort of look, and she says, look, why have you got the job? Why has a woman not got the job? Can you tell me how many women applied for the job? Why was it good? And she talks to him as if, and he plays me this bit. So she talks to him as if she's a school mum addressing down some sort of school child for like being late for school or something like that. Her tone and her manner is that she has absolute moral superiority here, and he is a moral inferior, and he better answer her questions or else. That's the tone that she's taking with him, which I thought, I mean, this is your boss. Now, regardless what you may or may not think about it, what you give him an interrogate, because that's what it was, an interrogation of how many women apply. Why has he got the job and not a woman? And this is the stuff he gets straight away. So now he's not a man who's sort of short on words, but the shock of sort of that I don't know, you call it an ambush, I guess, an ideological ambush. The shock of that clearly sort of unsettled him, and he sort of, Now he did a mistake here, and I'll mention this. He said, well, he didn't know, and why don't you know? And he said, well, I'm not an HR, I'm just a job applicant, and so already she's got him denying and backpedaling. He's on the back foot, and he's backpedaling. He's denying it, and so on. And she's got him and knows it too. You can tell from the interchange. I mean, you don't need to look at it. Just listening, you can see. And because he's on the back foot and backpedaling, her sense of moral superiority and supremacy increases. She's now turned into a predator, a bully predator, making a chase, and she's going to, sort of chasing a kill. And he just backpedals, and then he's apologizing to her, and I'll find out for you, and this sort of thing. And I think it was just a shock. I know he doesn't normally, but I've seen him in action. He doesn't normally behave like that. And I think it was just a sheer surprise and the vehemence of the woman's attack. Anyway, it goes on around the table, and these women are telling him how he must interact with them. He's not telling them, say, I want you all to do your job, or nothing like they're telling him. The women are telling him, I don't want to be micromanaged. I'll let you know if I need your help. Until then, it's just better if you stay out of my way. Things like this. I mean, whoa, this is. And each one of the women, certainly the women that spoke, I don't know if all of them spoke, but the women were telling him, they were dictating to him how he should behave and must behave with them. Now, the brown women were sort of, I'm not sure they would have led this necessarily, but they jumped on the bandwagon, and one brown woman who apparently is, wears a burqa to work, she demands to know if he's a racist and this sort of thing. So an absolute ideological tirade. That's what you'd expect from affirmative action hires, I suppose, in a way, but not in a professional services engineering firm. You wouldn't really expect it there, but here you go. Interestingly, not one of the men said anything. That's straight white men, by the way. Not one of the men said anything. And as he noted, as he mentioned to me, they were very embarrassed by the behaviour of the women. And so they said nothing, sort of stared at the floor and knew that they just had to sit there. They've got mortgages and kids in school and so on. So they just have to accept, with as good a grace as they can summon the putting up and tolerating this behaviour. And no doubt they're subject to it. Anyway, this time goes on. This VP guy, this buddy of mine, he starts giving tasks to people on the basis of their supposed credentials. Now, all these women supposedly have top-notch engineering degrees. This is not fourth-tier colleges with bottom-tier passes. These are Ivy League colleges with top-tier passes. So they should be the creme de la creme of the engineering community. I mean, they're not, and everybody knows it. But anyway, he's giving jobs to them that he thinks that aren't really that complicated, because he notices that the women are doing sort of really almost clerical work, and it's the men, the straight white guys that are really doing the serious technical work. But he wants to spread this around, so he starts assigning technical work to the women, and the women that are always morally lecturing. He reckons that pretty much every day one of them at least comes to him to try and give him a moral lecture about the evils of you've no idea how hard it is being a woman, and we have to work 10 times harder than men, and this and the only thing he's noted is how lazy they are, and the women, and how they're avoiding any serious work or any work that may involve them being judged as you passed or failed. So, they avoid this. I've noticed that over the years as well. Any strictly pass or fail work, and the women run 100 miles an hour away from it, and yet will complain they're not being treated equally. So he gets he signs the work to the women, and he gets pushback straight away. So, I'm a people person, or I work better in a team, or whatever, and they come out with all these excuses and obfuscations. I haven't got time. I have to take tomorrow off because my mother's ill. Every excuse you can imagine to avoid doing the work. Why don't you give it to Billy Bob or Jimmy Jack? The straight white males on the team. So the girls these women are trying to tell her, like, come into, well, I don't want to do this. You give it to so and so to do. I haven't got time for that. So he insists that no, you're a qualified person, you're a member of the team, you can do it. And he's talking about one woman who said, well, I don't want to do it, and just turns around, on a heel, shows him her back, and just walks off. And so he follows and says, no, look, I'm giving you a directive. I'm your boss. I'm instructing you to do this. And so next thing you know, if an hour or two goes by, next he's getting a call from HR. Why are you harassing this woman? Are you a misogynist? Are you a supporter of the patriarchy? Is that what we're talking about? There's no point. He says there's just no point in pushing it. If he really tries to force a showdown over this as to who's boss, and this woman is supposed to be qualified and should be. If he forces, he's convinced that if he forces a showdown, he'll be the one who gets fired, and then the word will be around town that he's, a misogynist or something. Like he just can't afford that. He's got a big mortgage and kids in private school and so on. So he's just got to accept it. But it's interesting seeing that he's effectively, there's a rebellion. The women have been affirmative actioned into the just gifted jobs they haven't got a snowball's chance of doing, and they know they can't do it. They've been given these jobs and still run around claiming victimhood and coming out with he mentioned some of the things that they were saying to him, and he didn't know. I did, and I said, look, that's actually a straight out talking point from gender studies, which is a course on how to hate men and white society and families and so on. He didn't really know much about that, so I steered him onto that, and called up a few things on the online, and he, oh wow, I didn't know that. I said, yeah, they're just straight out quoting gender studies talking points to you. So don't think this is genuine. I told him that don't think that they've thought something through and they're discussing it with you. Far from it. It's straight out ideological propaganda. That's all they're putting at you. And he, oh wow, I didn't know that. So, but it shows the extent that things have and this is all across the Western world and all across the business and commercial sector. This sort of thing goes on. Now, whether it goes on to a greater or lesser extent is almost beside the point. But he can't give these women any work to do, any serious work. They'll only do the low-level clerical stuff. Whilst at the same time, of course, claiming that they're being kept away from the executive suite and we work twice as hard as the men and all that sort of stuff. So that's nonsense. And just to indicate, there was the company was doing some sort of like a talk for each of the different departments on how the patriarchy oppresses women or something along those lines, which is part of this wider affirmative action thing. And when this was announced by HR, these women apparently suddenly, these lazy women who won't do a job of work, they suddenly came to life, and it was all hysterical. They were running around like crazy, organising and putting together this is the patriarchy oppressing women type course, and decided they need the whole day off, and they come to him and say, well, it's the thing only goes for an hour or 2 hours, however long it is, but we'll need the whole day off because when we're told about how evil the patriarchy is, it'll upset us so much we won't be able to do any work. So we have to have the day off. He tells them, no, that's nonsense. That's silly. Again, an hour or two goes by. He gets the call from HR. Are you a misogynist, oppressor, Nazi? Well, why won't you give these women what they're asking for? This sort of thing. And he actually has no power over these, as in, the authority of the boss. He's got no authority over these women. They pretty much do what they want, and they'll only do work if they feel like. He can't assign them tasks and say, do this, and we've got a big project, or we've got a customer that's got this problem, we need to solve it, or we need to get such and such. He just can't run his department that way. He effectively has to, not effectively, he does. In reality, he has to ask them, are you prepared to do this? Are you in agreement with it? Will you let me direct? This sort of thing. So they're in charge, and he's effectively their employee or their servant. He can't tell them what to do. And whereas the men, he says, this is the straight white men, he says, they're no problem. I can just give them a job to do, and they'll do it, and do it well, and do it without drama or bother or a carry on. He said, but we can't do it with any of the women. And the brown women, of course, are worse yet again. Not that they necessarily backchat him so much or give him the ideological sort of finger, but they just don't do the work, and they'll just sit around, do nothing. And if he complains, they threaten him with a call to HR and this sort of stuff. Are you a racist? Are you a bigot? Are you a Nazi? And so on. So this is the state. Now he's someone who I wouldn't say he's against affirmative action necessarily. He's not an ideologue, so he's not sort of for or against or anything like that. You certainly wouldn't call him a racist or a misogynist for that matter. But even he, someone like him who's a very moderate sort of type guy, even he's reached the view that affirmative action, race, gender quotas, because it requires such a lowering of standards to get the outcome that the ideologues want. He says it's an absolute disaster. The cost of the business. He can't fire these people. He can't get them to do the work. He can't give them directions. He can't reprimand them if they screw up or refuse to accept direction. They're untouchable, he says, and he really has to just tiptoe around them and tread on eggshells around these women who aren't competent enough to have got the job in the first place. They're no better than receptionists or some low-level, clerical thing, but they've been given these important jobs with important titles and told they're every bit as good as the men, but they're nowhere near as good, not even close. And they've got, to boot, a terrible attitude as well. But listening to the tone of those women in the first meeting, again, which he recorded, I was like, whoa. And he said himself, my ears were burning. I couldn't believe the way they were telling me, you'll do this, you'll do that. You have to treat me this way or else, and so on. I don't know how any business or company can function with that sort of thing. And of course, reality is they can't. And the cost of such ineptitude, laziness, and just carrying the dead weight to not only to that company, but to the society and the community at large, the cost is huge. We're all suffering because of this. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.